It's springtime. I've graduated high school, and today I start my job.
People often say that if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. But how is anyone supposed to figure out what exactly they want to do for the rest of their life when they're as young as 18 years old? This is a question I've been struggling with for years. Just what do I want to spend the rest of my life doing? I'm rapidly approaching college graduation, but somehow I've gotten further from an answer than before I started. It's for this reason that New Game holds a special place in my heart. I watched New Game for the first time the summer before I started college, and it instantly became one of my favorites, even though I couldn't really put my finger on why exactly that was. Rewatching the show years later, I have an even deeper appreciation for it. At its core, New Game is an escapist fantasy, but the fantasy of New Game is far different than the ones being peddled by most other anime. Generally, the escapist fantasy created by trashy light novel adaptations and harems is designed to make young men feel powerful and wanted. A common criticism leveled against the moe genre is that the shows are designed to pander to otaku by allowing them to project onto comfy high school age girls. But New Game is unique in that the primary draw of the show is focused at an older, working age audience. While people are quick to write off cute girls doing cute things shows as all being the same or having no plot, I think this comes from a very narrow conception of what defines a good story. Not everything needs to follow a traditional Hollywood 5-act tale. Hidden beneath the cute girls and lighthearted comedy are some genuinely serious and touching moments, and a story that really has the capacity to stick with you. Let's start with the notion that New Game is a flawed anime because it isn't realistic. This has always struck me as a somewhat bizarre criticism. That's like trying to complain about the Gundam franchise because the mecha are flawed from an engineering and physics perspective. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of a work's appeal. New Game isn't unrealistic because the mangaka doesn't know what he's talking about. Rather, it's deliberately unrealistic because Shotaro Tokuno, the author of New Game, worked in the video game industry for 3 years and is well acquainted with the many negative aspects about the industry. People often compare New Game to Shirobako, but this is a flawed comparison. While Shirobako is probably concerned about the production process of anime, the process of creating games is secondary to the primary focus of New Game, that is, seeing how the characters grow and interact. The most obvious example of the story's creative liberties is how Eagle Jump, the studio where most of the story takes place, employs exclusively women, even though the gaming industry is well known for being a male-dominated field. Furthermore, when Alba is first hired at Eagle Jump, she has no experience of 3D modeling, and spends much of the first episode just learning the ropes. Tokuno's goal is never to paint a realistic picture of game development. He makes this clear from the beginning. The fact that the company is all women is lampshaded multiple times throughout the story. There's this conversation that Alba has of Hazuki, the director, about why she only hires women at the company, only for Hazuki to play it off by making fun of Rin by speculating what would happen if Ko were to fall in love with a man. It's clear that the goal of New Game was never to be realistic, and criticizing the show on those grounds is hollow. The appeal of New Game is couched in being the antithesis of everything that's wrong with game development and work culture in Japan more generally. If you've ever watched any of those day in the life of a Japanese X videos, you know how grueling Japanese work culture can be. Though this is beginning to change, working long hours and avoiding taking time off is normalized as a way to signal one's commitment to the company. The brilliance of New Game's narrative lies in how it's able to take these negative attributes associated with Japanese office culture and instead turns them around to make them seem benign or even fun. Instead of a sausage party at work, you get an office full of cute girls. Instead of incompetent and power-hungry superiors, you get characters like Yagami, Rin, and Umiko, who look out for their subordinates and genuinely care about them. But perhaps this is best illustrated in the first episode when we're first introduced to Yagami. We see her sleeping under the bed in her underwear, setting the tone for the rest of the show. The scene takes what should be seen as something negative, having to sleep in the office, and plays it off as something fun and wacky. This is a recurring pattern throughout the show. Tokuno isn't really trying to obscure the tough reality of game development. In fact, the show often goes out of its way to show how long the characters stay at the office, and how often Yagami sleeps there. But when the characters stay the night, it's portrayed almost as a fun sleepover with friends, rather than the consequence of a poor work-life balance. The team who seemingly has it the worst, the programming team, barely has any screen time. When you think about it rationally, the working conditions at Eagle Jump are really quite poor. The entire situation is addressed in episode 9 when Nene and Alba have a fight because Nene is worried about how much Alba has been working. In the end, they reconcile with Nene recognizing how hard Alba is working towards achieving her dream. While a seemingly trivial change, the decision to set New Game in the workplace rather than in high school gives it a radically different appeal. You can definitely enjoy New Game as a fun comedy with cute girls, but there's so much more hidden beneath the surface. Something I really appreciate about this anime is how there's all sorts of small details that help to develop the characters. Early on, there's a scene when Alba is talking to Nene on the phone about her job. Despite how calm she sounds on the phone, her body movement demonstrates to us just how excited she is about her new job. Or consider how each character's desk is decorated. Hifumi's desk has a cactus on it, and she keeps a cactus pillow in her drawer. A small nod to how, like a cactus, Hifumi can seem prickly and unapproachable on the outside. A common criticism of New Game is that the characters seem too similar to the conventional archetypes of the moe genre, but I would disagree. For example, look at Hazuki. Despite generally not taking her job very seriously, she's able to give genuinely good advice, and acts as a respectable role model for the rest of the cast when push comes to shove. She's always there to give Alba and Hajime serious advice to help them grow into their new roles as character designer and director respectively. More generally, this is reflective of how New Game is able to depict something that a traditional high school setting can't: relationships between characters of different ages. While this is easy to forget because of the art style, characters like Yagami, Rin, Hazuki, and Umiko are all solidly older than the rest of the cast. Despite her outwardly cold appearance, Umiko becomes a mentor to Nene and goes to bat for her to get her hired at Eagle Jump despite her inexperience. Yagami ends up leaving Eagle Jump at the end of season 2, not just because she wants to improve herself, but because she knows that if she stays, she's only going to inhibit Alba's ability to develop as an artist. As long as Yagami's there, the company will continue to use her as a crutch. Her pedigree will necessarily stifle Alba's growth, as demonstrated by how Yagami was forced to draw the key visuals for Peko. I think this speaks to how well Tokuno has written the cast of New Game. Despite outwardly seeming carefree and aloof, Yagami genuinely cares for Alba and the rest of the character team. The relationship between Yagami and Alba is definitely one of the highlights of the show. The conversation they have at the party for Fairy Story 3's release, or at the airport the day Yagami leaves for France, are touching in a way that you don't often find in most other shows in this genre. At its core, the appeal of New Game is baked into its characters. The entire cast has something they're working towards, and we see them slowly grow and change over the course of the anime. It's refreshingly heartwarming to see Alba grow from this complete newbie who's socially awkward at work and doesn't know the first thing about 3D into a skilled character designer who's able to compete with Yagami, her role model. Hifumi, a fan favorite, is able to gradually overcome her social anxiety. The difference between how she interacts with Alba in the beginning versus how she's able to interact with Momiji in the end of season 2 is night and day. While in a lot of other shows, Hifumi's social anxiety would be played off as a fun character quirk, in New Game, it's something that she genuinely wants to change because it bothers her. Just like in real life, Hifumi doesn't just magically get better at socializing with people. This evolution is gradual over the course of the show. Consider how the first time Hazuki asks Hifumi to be the character team lead, she completely shuts down. In the following episodes, we see Hifumi meaningfully try to change herself and take steps to improve. After watching Alba pour her heart and soul into the character design competition and get selected to be the designer for Peko, Hifumi works up the courage to ask Alba to lunch to help her adjust to her new position. It's no coincidence that 2 episodes later, Hifumi manages to accept the request to be character team lead. Nene is working towards becoming a programmer, despite that not being what she originally saw herself doing. Rin wants to be a producer that can help the team grow, and to prevent another situation where someone has to deal with the same ostracization that Yagami did when she first started. I could go on and on about each character's motivations and why I find them so enjoyable. But for me personally, the character I relate to the most is Yoon. Despite her comparatively small amount of screen time, Yoon is one of the few characters who isn't animated by some great passion for what she's doing. Unlike Alba, Yagami, or even Hajime, Yoon didn't really intend to go into game development, and only just did it because she kind of fell into it. She doesn't have any big aspirations of becoming a character designer or game director. Because she has to take care of her siblings, she comes off as a lot more responsible than the rest of the cast. Much of Yoon's arc, especially in the chapters that occur after the end of the second season of the anime, are based around Yoon trying to figure out what she wants. Yoon sees Alba move up to character designer, Hifumi moves up to character team lead, Rin to producer, and Hajime to director. She's the only one who doesn't have a dream she's chasing, and that's something I feel a certain visceral connection to. It seems like everyone around me has their life figured out and is striving towards their own goals. While my friends get 6-figure software engineering jobs at Microsoft, Amazon, and Facebook, I sit at home watching anime. I see people dedicate hundreds of hours into studying for the MCAT, while I can barely pull myself together enough to write these scripts and edit these videos together. Looking through LinkedIn, seeing people I barely knew in passing scoop up prestigious jobs at McKinsey or Citadel while I've barely accomplished anything is soul-crushing. I think the Yun Alba situation strikes especially close to home for me because my ex-girlfriend is now a talented and accomplished illustrator. We would often joke about how she was going to become a starving artist, while I would go on to become some high-earning lawyer or investment banker. Oh, how the tables have turned. In Yun's case, she decides that she isn't going to be left behind as the only person who isn't moving forward. She participates in the character design contest for the Death Dodgeball game. Even though she ends up losing, she's able to take solace in knowing she's developing her own unique style. In the end, her efforts pay off as she's promoted to art director. In recent years, I've had the same realization as Yun. I can't just be content to sit on the sidelines and watch everyone around me grow while I flounder in place. I too must take steps forward. People are often quick to deride certain shows as existing for the purpose of wish fulfillment. At its core, is New Game a show based around wished fulfillment? Yes. But is that necessarily a bad thing? Do I wish that I could work in a company full of cute girls, a boss who supports me, and a team who gets along well on a personal level? Of course, who wouldn't? But the reason I've come to appreciate New Game even more than the first time I watched it in 2017 is because of how it inspires me to achieve my own goals. When I applied to college, I had the option to attend one of the top computer science programs in the United States, but I ended up turning it down because deep down, I knew that I would never really enjoy being a software engineer. But looking at my friends who by all metrics have made it with their cushy 6-figure Silicon Valley jobs, I can't help but feel inferior, jealous, and regretful of my decision. But when I watch New Game, it gives me hope that I've made the right decision. Seeing Aoba, Yun, Hifumi, Hajime, Nene, Rin, and Yagami strive towards their goals makes me hopeful that one day I too will be able to genuinely do what I enjoy and care about. That's part of the reason why this channel exists after all. I imagine that's the reason why Tokuno wrote New Game, not as some hard-hitting commentary of the gaming industry, but as a story of people working together to achieve their dreams. While it may not have some super deep narrative or push the boundaries of the medium, New Game is a show that speaks to my personal struggles, and for that reason, it will always be one of my favorites.